So this is augmenting teak timber. See, it would be naive on my part to talk about the technical aspects of teak timber as well as the qualitative part of the teak timber with senior forest officers, scientists, those who have got several years of experience. So therefore, I'll not be focusing, and the time is also limited, only 20 minutes. So I'll not be talking much about on those aspects anyway. Since today morning, I have been hearing a lot of technical inputs have been shared by many of the experts on teak. Now, this is just as many of the speakers have already said. So I'll be just coming to the third point. That is, and this again was pointed out by some of the speakers, the uniqueness or the regional variations in the teak, the timber which is being grown in the different regions of this country. And through scanning of literature, I could see that Western Ghat teak, because of high rainfall, is most suitable for structural requirements, whereas Central Indian teak is noted for color, texture, grain, and it is ideal for furniture and aesthetic purpose. And teak from Godavari Valley, from where I come, that is Andhra Pradesh and Telangana and Maharashtra, known for furniture and cabinet making for ornamental figuring. So anyway, and another one thing which I feel we need to introspect, which maybe again Tasneem Ahmad Sahab had pointed out, and that is something which is very critical. If you go through the policy, now if you look at the forest policy of 1988, it says that the forest-based industries should maintain close linkage and they should establish relationship with the producers and growers of raw material. And we have some successful examples of ITC Bhadrachalam, Vimco, Balarpur industry. And then followed by that, India was the first country in the world to have a national agroforestry policy, which was released in February 2014, and with the slogan that Har Made Per Ped, that is basically the bund plantation. And it has got a detailed policy issues for implementation of agroforestry, not only teak, but all other, the timber species and other valuable species as part of agroforestry to augment the income of the farmers. So, but despite all these things, if we look at, and we are talking about, and as Dr. MP Singh had said in the beginning, the almost huge quantity of timber is being imported from outside. We were talking about the instructions from the government of India and the policy decisions. So one thing is, after that Supreme Court order in the Godavarman case, maybe many of us have given up. There is no proper interpretation, legal interpretation, and subsequent policy guidelines on how to go about it. Number one. Number two, because of the pressures from the social activists, NGOs, civil society members, maybe could be international pressures, the whole focus has shifted only to protection, conservation. And again, I would not like to dwell on it because Tasneem Ahmad Sahab was talking about it, that forest officers are for scientific silvicultural management of the forest. We cannot leave the forest merely like a jungle without doing any work. Third thing is, even the latest FSI report on the status of the forest in the country. See, we have a huge, more than almost 80% of the area which fall under the category of degraded category, that is open forest, where the canopy density is less than 40%. Now, definitely there are today technology as well as the policy guidelines through which we can strike a balance between the biodiversity conservation, between the needs of the ecological services as well as the requirement of the society. So therefore, I feel a serious introspection is required by all the stakeholders on this particular issue, that why have we landed in such kind of serious situation. And then a beginning has been made by organizing this kind of webinar. So I'm sure at least some thinking would be initiated. Now, Dr. Gurdev Singh was talking about some of the private industries in other countries who are doing reasonably well, if we have understood him correctly. And we also talked about the teak bond, which was launched in India in the early 80s, but many of them have failed. So why is it, if It is so easy to do it. Why is it that other business sectors in the country you look at, you see software industries, it has developed even without support of the government. I come from Andhra Pradesh. Andhra Pradesh, we are the largest producers of marine, no aquaculture, and we export almost 40% of the national requirement. And there again, the involvement of the government is very less. So maybe some kind of policy contour has to be given through which we facilitate. Now we have two sectors. One is growing timber in the existing forest area, and second part is as part of the agroforestry to augment the farmers' income. Where, as Bansal Sahab was talking about, we have an issue of land holding. If you look at the land holding pattern of this country, 85% of the farmers are small and marginal farmers where the land holding is less than 1 hectare. If we look at the fragmentation of land and the decreasing land holding, from 1970 onwards till 2020, now it has come to almost 1 hectare. It used to be almost 2.5 hectare. Now it has reduced to, that is, land holding of a family had come down to 1 hectare. So therefore, there are issues related to agroforestry. We have also launched a scheme, submission on agroforestry as part of that national agroforestry policy way back in 2014. We have a scheme from National Medicinal Plantation Board. We have a mission on bamboo, which is almost 15 years old. But many of these missions, the desired output, which we expected, has not yet reached. So the whole, you see, the idea of bringing out these issues is a serious introspection is required that why we have not been able to achieve, despite some of these policy issues which have been in place, but it has not been accepted. Regarding coming to the forest sector, as I said, a lot of senior foresters are there, a lot of scientific communities there, other stakeholders are there, Government of India officials are there. I'm sure we need to look into that aspect, that how do we circumvent. There is no, see, because whatever working plan we prepare, like in Andhra Pradesh, we propose for thinning of teak plantations, and it has been approved, and we have been doing thinning on teak plantations. So therefore, I don't think there is any such legal hurdle that if we propose certain operations as part of the working plan, other than the social pressure and the pressure from the other stakeholders that could be there, which can be again taken care of with high quality empirical evidence to in support of our the policy recommendations. Now, you see, so therefore I'll be focusing more on that how to augment, and again my focus is on the agroforestry, because even today almost 64% of the requirement comes from the tree outside forest, not from the forest, because of various reasons which again I would not like to dwell on. Lack of improved planting stock, which Dr. Gurdev Singh was talking about. Although we have been talking about encouraging the agroforestry, but then where are the good planting stock available? Where is the information available? Where is the access to the farmers? None of it's very difficult to get. Having worked in the agriculture sector for 6 years and interacted with the farmers, I am telling you the grassroots reality. Lack of data on tea growers and plantations. We should have some kind of the national database which industries can access, and therefore some kind of linkage is the 1988 policy talks about between the industries, the forest-based industries, as well as the growers and the producers of these raw material. So if we can match these two things, we have got the FICCI, the CII, and so many other the business institutions. Similarly, for forest-based industries also, it could be linked as part of that, and maybe it becomes easy to access the database. Now, performance of teak plantations of shorter duration, which has been talked about at length, we need to have clear-cut empirical evidence. Now we talk about 25 years of rotation. So what is the performance of these timber grown for short duration? Credit facility to the growers. This is the biggest challenge. Non-availability. So the agriculture sector, there is a priority sector lending where 40% of the credit, and it is being reviewed. So if we are able to ensure, and this has been one of the biggest challenge for the farmers, because these are all long gestation crops, the farmers cannot immediately get the benefits, and they need to have continuous flow of credit because the cost of production is going to be high. Then production practices for growing and managing teak in different ecological zones and agroclimatic conditions. Even if ICFRE and the Institute of Tree Breeding Coimbatore or other institutions have done it or universities have done it. Is it accessible to the farmers? Is it there in the public domain? Is it available to those who are interested to access it? So therefore, we need to have production. And when I talk about production practices, it is not only the site quality identification, the nature of soil, it is the fertigation schedule, the irrigation schedule, the disease and pest management, and so many other things which are related to production of any other crop. Look at horticulture. If you look at horticulture growth in the last 10 years, it has overtaken agriculture. Now the horticulture productivity at the national level is much higher than the agriculture production. At the same time, the GVA, the gross value added from horticulture again is much higher from the agriculture. So farmers will prefer to grow any crop, whether it is horticulture, agriculture, forestry, if they find that it is remunerative, if they find that this substitute is better than what they are doing today. So we need to focus on these things and maybe more number of training programs, capacity building. The institutions can start working on it. The legal issues with regard to harvesting and transport. This is a much bigger challenge. We have seen as forest officers in the field how difficult it is for an ordinary farmer to get the felling permission and the transit permit. So we need to seriously look into these issues. Lack of farmer-friendly agri-silviculture model, agri-silviculture horticulture model, that is intercropping. We have to have different layers. Now, when we talk about the climate change, one of the climate change mitigation measures recommended is multi-layer cropping pattern. As part of that multi-layer cropping pattern, can we recommend teak and scrubby forestry species together with other middle layer and the ground layer cropping pattern, which gives continuous flow of income to the farmers? Look at oil palm. And today, you see, the Andhra Pradesh oil palm was introduced somewhere in 1993, and we are today the largest producer of oil palm in the country, almost 1.75 lakh hectares, and the farmers are getting huge income. And because the farmers are getting huge income, and the production technology related to the management of the crop is accessible to them, so therefore they are picking it up. Now, way forward, as I said, national database of tea growers as well as the uh, plantations. R&D requires huge support. We have huge setup of research institutions in the private as well as in the government sector, and we need to motivate them to take up. And these findings and the outcomes of the R&D should be made accessible to the users. Unless these are disseminated, that is lab to field, many of the findings and the research outputs remain only within the lab or in the publications and research papers, which the common user, they don't access it. So therefore, and this is age-old practice. If we need to ensure that the society gets benefited, the stakeholders who are required to use this output, we need to have a proper mechanism to disseminate such information and such findings. Strengthening of institutional arrangements to supply quality and source identified planting stock, which was one of the constraints, and this also is a way forward that unless we ensure it. Now, I'll again quote another example. If you come to Andhra Pradesh has got the biggest nursery cluster in India. That is the Kadiyam nursery. Their business is in thousands of crores. They export globally, world over. So, you see, and lot of inputs have gone into it. So therefore, similar kind of thinking needs to come into this sector if we talk about augmenting the supply and stopping the drain of the foreign exchange for import of timber and making it available to our own people domestically. Easy access to credit, which again I talked about. Production practices for different ecological region and agroclimatic zone. This uh, somehow, I think that their slide has got stuck. Anyway, I think slide has got stuck. So these are some of the relevant issues. Unless we work on this, involve all the stakeholders, come out with policy guidelines which are entrepreneur friendly, where the private sector, the farmers, the other stakeholders who are interested, and ultimately, as I said, besides the forestry sector, where we have got a huge potential, where again the government of India and state government will have to work together to come out with a proper model. This is, I think, my last slide, the appropriate commercial agri-silviculture, horticulture model, publicity and dissemination of knowledge and technical information, common grading system and quality certification. Now, this is another major challenge which all of us, I think earlier also some of the speakers have talked about, that how do we grade? Because marketing linkage again is when we talk about taking the timber production outside the forestry sector to the public domain, the quality grading system, the quality certification, the market linkage becomes huge challenge. We know that how the middlemen operate and how the farmers are deprived of the income. So therefore, this is one aspect where I'm sure the IT TO is working and they must have come out with some kind of thing, but we need to disseminate them. Marketing linkage is extremely important, and no, maybe today with the advancement of the IT technology, we should be able to make it accessible through even mobile to the farmers. Review of the policy, legal and procedure issue for entrepreneur-friendly tea food farming. Although we have some policies which are in place, but despite that, the objectives have not been fulfilled. Therefore, we need to revisit and review these policies and see that how we can ensure that whatever objectives we desire, it is uh, taken to the people. And the last point is the part of the degraded forest area, which again Tasneem Sahab was talking about. When we have such a huge area, which are categorized as open forest, which are degraded, where nothing much is happening. Maybe the reasons are many, and one of the constraints is also the lack of the budget or the funding. If you look at again the funding of the various state forest departments and even at the government of India, there has been decreasing trend in the funding of the various. So we need to again explore the possibility of funding, and maybe if we start production in our own forest area, that could also help us in augmenting the funding of the concerned department besides generating revenue for the government. So this is all from my side, which I wanted to share with all of you. And anyway, I am available if any discussion is required. I'll be happy to be part of the discussion. And I once again thank Dr. MP Singh and IWST for giving me this opportunity. With regard to Andhra Pradesh, we have almost about 35,000 hectares currently under tea plantations. And maybe the expected volume which we can harvest in next 5 years is almost about 70,000 cubic meters. But in recent year, there has been decreasing trend, huge reduction in the area taken up for the teak plantation. So thank you.